we're using iPads in the sixth form in modern languages. We've had them in the department for a couple of weeks now, and we've had some really exciting lessons. My favourite was using the iPads using Google Documents to actually encourage collaboration with students. We were doing some work on literature, and we used a Google document to put together the students' notes for the whole class, which meant that different students could work on different areas, and we ended up with a very information-rich document in a relatively short amount of time that all the students could then access. What I particularly enjoyed is that that document has continued to grow after the lesson in a way that static notes in an A4 lever arch file would never have done.
And what do you think might be the sort of end point of this? Do you think almost that as a teacher you can start to move away from being, more didactic in terms of what you do with them and letting the students think for themselves and reach their own conclusions?
Yeah, I definitely think there's potential for moving away from the didactic approach, and I also think there's possibility for students to not start with an empty page anymore. So I will approach teaching my sixth formers next year in a different way, perhaps even giving them some of the starting points that my current sixth form students have had, so that they have in a way a head start in their thinking, and that might help them model some more advanced approaches with their work.
So do you see it then, it's quite interesting, almost like a sort of crowdsourced project, that the sixth form students at Berkhamsted build up this repository of linguistic knowledge that part of their learning aims and objectives is to build on that and develop it each year?
Definitely, I think there's a lot of scope for collaborative and also not starting from the beginning sort of approach. But I also think there's tremendous scope for creativity in how the students build their learning. So starting with something relatively mundane, we can, using iPads, encourage students to take a more creative approach and perhaps a far more personalised approach to their learning. So I can now take the focus away from what the product actually looks like and really look at how I want the students to end up with something advanced. So, for example, within my current Year 13 group, I've got a real mixture of styles and preferences. One student might really appreciate putting things on a timeline, another is much more in favour of bullet points and lists, and actually I can now encompass all of their needs and their preferred styles in a much more flexible way, and they can share those and perhaps be a little bit more open-minded about each other's preferences too.
And in terms of Google Apps and Google Docs in particular, are you seeing that that's a tool that helps students think for themselves?
Google Docs definitely helps students think for themselves. I've found that the independence it can provide is really impressive, especially in this sort of seamless approach that we can now take both inside the classroom and out. I also think that removing some of the elements of competition from the work that I've been doing, particularly at sixth form level, and having a more collaborative approach, has really helped students to see beyond their current thinking and be open-minded about stretching themselves in a way that they perhaps wouldn't have been aware of before.
And finally, can I ask you about the use of IT for teachers and personal learning networks? Because you've got a fantastic modern languages blog, you're very active on Twitter, thousands of people follow you. Can you just explain how that's helped you develop your own, if you like, creative and reflective academic practice?
Yeah, my personal learning network has been really crucial for me in terms of developing my own practice, but also my professional development, my own sense of creativity and managed risk-taking as a leader. I feel very strongly that as teachers we work too often in isolation, and it's a tremendous benefit to feel that there is a strong and knowledgeable network of people who are really willing to help and provide expertise out there, both nationally and internationally. So I have a tremendous amount to thank my PLN for now, because they are my sounding board. They are always there with a quick answer if I have questions that need answering about technical things, about language specific things, about management issues. They are a fantastic bunch of people and tremendously giving. The community of teachers on Twitter in particular is amazingly selfless, so it's an honour actually to have their input. I also find that it means that I don't have to start any of my projects sort of at ground zero with nothing. I can always benefit from other people's expertise and their mistakes. People are especially keen that we don't repeat mistakes, and I know with our current iPad project, for example, one of the things that I feel very fortunate about is I can repay some of that goodness that's come my way by providing some insights into some of the issues that we've had and some of the benefits that we've had, so that people don't have to go through all of that agonising thinking endlessly ad infinitum in lots of different schools. So it's it means that people can skip a few steps and gain some expertise from people who've been there already.